Wait, what if I told you this one idea could give you two beautiful cards instead of just one? Today's project started off as a fun interactive window shaker card, but as I was creating, I realized something that the leftover negative piece was just too pretty to waste. So instead of tossing it aside, I turned it into a second card. I'll be showing you how to create not one, but two coordinating cards using the exact same design elements. It's a great way to stretch your supplies, get more value out of your dies, and honestly, who doesn't love a bonus card? Hi everyone, I'm Revati and welcome to my channel. Let's get started. Let's start by taking a closer look at the adorable products that I'll be using for today's card. First up, I have this super cute and adorable Woodland Critters stamp set. Now it is filled with the sweetest little forest animals, perfect for creating playful storybook style scenes. I especially love how expressive these little critters are. They just instantly add so much charm and personality to any of your cards. We have a little owl, a fox, a bear, and that little hedgehog. I think he would be my absolute favorite. We have a little wood log, a deer, a little piece of mushroom, and some foliage. I absolutely love the stamp set. And to go along with that, I also have the coordinating sentiment stamp. This one is packed with versatile greetings that pair beautifully with that images. Whether you're going for something cute, heartfelt, or a little playful, it really helps tie the whole design together. We have something that says, "Hope this card brings a smile to your face." A little critter told me it's your birthday, and so much more. I absolutely love the font on these sentiments, and we also have some simple sentiments like sending bear hugs your way, hello little woodland wonders, stick with it, and some fun foliage. Now, both these are part of the Woodland Critters released by Cat Scrappiness, and they are perfect for creating fun, cohesive projects like the two cards we'll be making today. Now, apart from the Woodland Critters, I also wanted to quickly show you this Hello Sweet Baby stamp set, which I used in my previous video. In that video, I created a soft nursery style scene, one in pink and one in blue, using a beautiful tone on tone stamping technique with some images you see here. I also added a lovely sentiment and colored a few focal point images to bring the whole design together. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll be sure to link it in the description box below so you can check it out for even more inspirations on how beautiful and adorable this stamp set is. And the sentiments on the stamp set would absolutely beautifully pair with our little woodland critters. I feel a little bear on your card front with a little hello sweet baby sentiment would be absolutely perfect. One thing to note is that Cat Scrappiness currently doesn't offer coordinating dice for these critters or even the sentiments, which is usually not the case. That said, the images are actually pretty easy to fussy cut since they don't have any super intricate or harsh lines. But I decided to go all in because I wanted to have a whole bunch of these critters stamped and ready to go whenever inspiration strikes. So what I did was stamp all of these images using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink and then heat set them with clear embossing powder. This not only gives a nice crisp outline, but it also makes the images a little more durable while handling. Then instead of cutting each of these images by hand, I used my brother's scan and cut machine to cut all of these images at once. Honestly, it's such a huge time saver, especially when you're working with a whole lot of stamped images and don't have coordinating dies. I love having a stash like this ready to go. I usually store all of my pre-cut images right inside the same stamp pocket, so I can just grab whatever I need depending on the card or the mood I'm going for. And I have all of these critters, I think, stamped twice or thrice. So I definitely have a whole bunch of these critters ready to go on any card fronts that I would like to create. And just like we did with the woodland critters, I also went ahead and cut out the smaller images from the Hello Sweet Baby stamp set. And those will be stored right along with everything else in that same stamp pocket. Let's get started with our cards for today. Initially, I had planned on creating just a window shaker card, and for that, I decided to use the Distressed Edge Rectangle die set by Cat Scrappiness. Now, I absolutely love the subtle bone edges on these dies. They add just the right amount of texture and interest to an otherwise clean panel. And well, this was actually the very first time I was using this die set, so I was really excited to experiment with it. This set comes with five different rectangle dies, and I chose to go with a third one for my panel. I positioned it so that I could create a window towards the top portion, leaving some space at the bottom for my sentiment. For the sentiment, I picked the phrase which says, "A little critter told me it's your birthday," which I thought paired perfectly with the cute critters and the fun shaker background that we are going to build inside that window. I used a little bit of washi tape to hold my die in place and then ran it through my die cut machine. And honestly, it was right at this moment when I saw that little negative piece that the idea clicked. I thought, why not turn this into a second card instead of just letting it go to waste? And that's how this turned into a 2-for-1 project. So for my shaker card window, I decided to create a little scene around the window. I added two critters, one standing just outside along the edge of the window, and a sweet little owl that perched on top of the right corner. And for the second card, I kept things a bit simpler and chose just one single critter, which is our little bear, as the main focal point of the card. Now, before assembling the card, I went ahead and colored in all of the images using my Ohuhu alcohol markers. Nothing too fancy here. I kept the coloring nice and simple with shades of browns and some soft, subtle grays for my critters. I really wanted them to look cute and cohesive without overcomplicating things. No beautiful shadowing or fancy techniques here. Now, personally, even if I was using coordinating dies instead of the scan and cut machine, I would still choose to cut my images first and then move on to the coloring. I just feel it's safer that way because after spending all that time coloring, the last thing I want is to mess up during the die cutting process. But that's just my preference. I'd love to know, what do you think? Do you like to color first and then die cut, or are you like me and prefer to cut first and then color in your images? Let me know in the comments below. Now, this is exactly where having a stash of pre-cut images really comes in handy. I love keeping a bunch of these stamped and cut images stored right inside my stamp pockets. That way, whenever I'm creating a card, I can simply pick and choose the ones I need and color them to match the background or the scene that I have in mind. It just gives me so much more flexibility and makes the whole process quicker and more enjoyable. And that's really why I like to stamp and cut way more images than I actually need for a single card design, because I know I'll be reaching for them again and again for future projects. Now that all of our images are colored, let's move on to creating the background panel that will sit inside the shaker window. I wanted to build a soft forest scene, so for that I'm using the Cardinal Birch Bliss stencil by Cat Scrappiness. I absolutely love the tree trunks and those delicate branches on this stencil. They create such a beautiful natural backdrop. Now, there is also a coordinating die that gives a similar look, but I decided to go with the stencil this time for a softer, more blended effect. Now, the stencil does include a few little cardinal birds, but I'm not going to use them for our cards today. I will just cover them up with a bit of washi tape and then focus on ink blending the tree trunks and branches to create our forest feel. Before adding any browns to my branches, I started by applying a light blue shade over the entire panel to mimic the sky. Once that was done, I went with a couple of soft shades of browns to bring that woodland background to life. I'm keeping my colors light and subtle and blending in with a very soft hand because I don't want the background to overpower the critters or the scene itself. Of course, if you prefer a more dramatic look, you could definitely layer and blend multiple shades to create a richer, darker forest backdrop. It all depends on the mood you want for your card. Next, we will move on to the card front. This is the panel that already has our window cut out. Now, before adding the acetate to the window, I wanted to stamp my sentiment. So I brought the panel over to my stamp platform and carefully stamped the sentiment right below the window, making sure it's perfectly aligned. I like to do this step, that is stamping the sentiment, before adding the acetate or assembling the entire shaker window. The reason is simple. Well, at this stage, if I happen to make a mistake or not stamp it properly, I have the flexibility to die cut another window and start over. Once everything is assembled, though correcting a mistake becomes much trickier. So I find it's always safer to get the sentiment done first. Next, we'll start assembling our shaker window. First, I added some double-sided tape to all four sides of the window panel and also to a piece of acetate that's slightly larger than the window itself. You want your acetate to be a bit bigger than the window so that none of the shaker bits sneak out and fall from the edges. I prefer using double sided tape instead of liquid glue for this step because acetate is slippery and tape holds everything securely in place. With liquid glue, there's always a risk it could ooze out and make a mess. Once the acetate was in place, I added foam tape around the edges of the window, making sure all the corners and sides lined up perfectly. This creates a secure pocket so none of the shaker elements can escape while still giving enough room for them to move around inside the window. I actually doubled up the foam tape on this window to make sure there's enough space inside the pocket for the shaker bits to move around freely. Now, for the shaker elements, I chose some really light and delicate options to keep the scene soft and magical. I went with a beautiful, brilliant blush sequin mix and the sweet baby girl embellishment mix, both by Cat Scrappiness. They just add the perfect touch of sparkle and whims to our forest background. Now, before adding these shaker bits, I also lightly dusted the edges of the foam tape with anti-static powder and peeled the backing of my foam tape. This helps prevent any of those sequences or embellishments from sticking to the sides so they can move around smoothly inside the window and none of them would stick to the tape once we try to remove the backing. Once I was happy with the amount of shaker bits inside the window, I went ahead and closed it up using the background panel we created earlier. This is actually my favorite way to assemble a shaker card. It keeps everything neat, secure, and gives the bits plenty of room to move around freely without getting stuck or spilling out. Now, all that's left is to add our little colored critters to the shaker window. I placed my tiny little owl on the top right corner, almost as if he's perched on one of those tree branches, and the other critter slightly overlapping the edge of the window. I love how this creates a bit of visual interest and depth, especially paired with the fun shaker elements moving around in the background. It really brings the scene to life and makes the card feel really playful and dynamic. And since we already have so much foam tape and dimension in the card already, I decided to stick these images using liquid glue directly on the acetate window. And just like that, card number one is complete. Now we can move on to card number two, where we will be using the negative piece left over from the window die cut. It is such a fun way to get a bonus card from the same idea, and I can't wait to show you how to turn this leftover piece into a completely new design. For card number two, we are going to use our bear as the main focal point of our card, placing it right on the negative piece from our window die cut. Now, to make this piece really stand out, I decided to add some bright, vibrant color to the background. I blended a few beautiful shades of greens across the entire panel, which creates a lovely woodland feel. I love how the brown bear really pops against this fresh green backdrop. It gives the card a cheerful, lively vibe while keeping it simple and clean, which is more of my design style. With our window card, we had a lot of shine and sparkle from those beautiful shaker elements. So, for the second bonus card, I wanted to keep things simple while still adding a little fun. To do that, I added some playful gold watercolor splatters and also sprayed a mist of that sparkle shimmer mist on that green background. I used gold metallic watercolors and I love how really they pop against that bright green. It adds just a touch of magic without overpowering our little bear. Now I will let this panel dry completely. I don't want to smudge any of that beautiful watercoloring. While that is drying, I went ahead and stamped the sentiment for our cut. For the sentiment on this bonus card, I chose sending bear hugs your way, which I thought pairs perfectly with our little bear as the main focal point. Now I stamped the sentiment using VersaFine Onyx Black ink and then heat embossed it with clear embossing powder. This gives the sentiment a beautiful glossy shine that ties it nicely with a subtle shimmer from the gold and the shimmer mist splatters on the background. Now, all that's left to do is assemble our bonus card. I started by placing my beautifully ink blended background right on top of my stamped sentiment. I adhered it directly onto the panel using some liquid glue. Then I added some foam tape to the back of our bear and mounted it on the green background. This gives the bear a little lift and dimension to our card. Now, if you wanted to make this card interactive, just like our window shaker card, you could swap the foam tape for an action wobble on the back of the bear. Then he would wobble and move whenever someone touches the card. It's just a fun way to bring your critters to life. I added some white highlights as finishing touches, and just like that, we have two completely adorable cards created from one single idea. What I love the most about this is how easy it is to get a bonus card without any extra effort. Just a little creativity with your leftover die cut pieces, and you instantly have a second coordinated card ready to go. It's a simple way to maximize your supplies, stretch your time, and end up with twice the fun and twice the cuteness. I hope this inspires you to look at your die cuts and negative pieces a little differently. You never know what beautiful bonus card might be hiding there. Don't forget to check out my video where I use the Hello Sweet Baby stamp set from this release. I will leave a link to that video in the description box below, along with all the links of the supplies that I used to create both these cards today. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.